Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have a guest that I've been wanting to have on for a long time, at least a few years since I saw a few interviews he had done. I believe one was with The Vice and numerous others. He's quite well known for what he's doing in Detroit. It's Dale Brown of Threat Management Services in Detroit. Essentially, I'll let him explain exactly what it is, but essentially it's like private policing. And for us anarcho-capitalists or voluntarists or anarchists, we would like to see the government not have any role in any of our lives in any way, and this is one way that this man has created a company or a organization that is expanding from what I hear and doing very well, and is essentially could replace the police, and actually it'd be a lot better and it'd be a lot cheaper really for the society as a whole. So we're going to get into all that. It's really exciting, and the best part to me was when I contacted him, I didn't know if he was a voluntarist or along those lines. I had no idea what kind of philosophical background or political ideologies he held, and it turns out he is a voluntarist. So when I heard that, I was like, this is perfect. I want to talk to you, and we got him on. I'm so glad to have him on. So Dale, first of all, welcome. And before we get started though, and we're going to talk about everything you're doing because it's fascinating. If stay tuned for this, everybody, you're going to love this. But before we get started, I just have to ask you, how did you become a voluntarist?
Well, essentially, I think it just felt right that in reality, to force people to do things, it just doesn't feel right. And if I am truly being honest, why would I want to do something to someone else I wouldn't want done to me? And so for me personally, the epiphany was, just growing up, realizing that we're being told things, narratives, ideas that are belief systems by those who believe in things that force others and ultimately end up historically in injuring others in the name of some, belief system. And I'm against that, and I stand for treating everyone with respect. And if they don't respect me, I don't care, because I'm about positive interactions. And that's the other thing, is I don't need to force people to capitulate to like me. If they don't like me, I simply go away. And there's nothing wrong with that. The concept we have to force people into liking or disliking something or someone, I believe is part of the problem. We need to accept people for who they are and, respect their ability to be an individual.
Absolutely. And what you just said, I don't think we would ever hear from a government police officer. There might be a few, but they just don't think that way. And so this is what I love about what you're doing. You're turning the entire paradigm upside down and doing everything almost the opposite of what the police do, but having better results. So we're going to get into all of that. But for people who don't know about threat management, why don't you just give us a little bit background of how you started it and how it's been going? Because you started, I believe, in 1993. Is that right?
Yes, I'm a school. So essentially what I do is I teach people how to defend themselves, their families, their communities, their corporations from violence, whether it's by another employee, a family member, a stranger. And what we emphasize is how to do that legally, so you don't get yourself prosecuted or sued, but also how to create a non-violent outcome. And when I first started, I was a ultra-violent believer. I believe that the best thing to do is to be the most violent person in the room with the highest level of violence capacity. So I had trained since I was a kid in martial arts. My mother was a physician in the military, grew up with guns, round guns, went to martial arts schools. And so for me, what I thought was best in order to manage physical threat with humans would be to be the most dominant person, the most ultra-violent person you could be, and therefore you would always win. And now I've had multiple evolutionary epiphanies, which have re-educated me into really realizing that my whole thought process was completely wrong. And so as I realized it in small steps over a 20 plus year period, I now realize that there's a much better way, and we live it every day. And so it's not theory. It is actually the bridge on how we go from a feeling and actual not being safe to creating the safety we all need and want for, and this is the purpose, for a great quality of life. That is the key. We focus on quality of life, nothing else. If you do that, you can negotiate, mediate, and create a non-violent environment for people to not just survive in, but also thrive in. And it turns out that peace and protection are also profitable. And I will explain that in detail, how I converted it. And everything's about conversion. You might have good ideas. How those ideas turn into actions, which ultimately have a result, are the key to creating that outcome that you need to be sustainable. And that's my only point, is that everything you do should be sustainable change. And so it's not just about change, but how do you create positive change that can self-sustain itself and be replicated. And that's been the point of the organization for, as I evolved, realizing that my old thought process of extreme violence was just completely wrong.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I always love to hear stories of people who had one sort of ideology for whatever reason, and then through thought process and logic and through experience, completely changed. That's a lot of people just don't go through that process for whatever reason. They'll have one sort of frame of mind and they'll just stay in it, and they will refuse, even if they've thought about it a little bit, they will still refuse to make that change in their life. So I find those sort of people are just a lot more interesting and a lot more courageous sort of people. I guess that people say it's courageous. To me, I just don't understand why you wouldn't. If you understand something's changed, then you would change your life. So you mentioned you're a school, but you also sort of do protection services too, right? Can you explain that?
Correct. So first of all, we're a school, which gives us the educational difference, the philosophy, the training, the skill set required to do physical different interactions with other humans. If I have fear, doesn't matter what my race is, my religion, doesn't matter what my position is, a government, civilian, fear will dictate my actions, and those will be negative actions. The only way to overcome fear is through education. Some type of information that removes our fear of the subject matter. So if we're going to be electricians and we're going to rewire a lamp, if you don't understand electricity and you're smart, you're going to be scared and you're not going to do it properly, and you're going to either electrocute yourself or just not do it at all. And so what you need is training. You need education. People mean well all the time and still get electrocuted doing home electrical repairs, not realizing there were two fuse boxes in a house. They turn off one fuse box, go do some electrical work, and get electrocuted because the other fuse box was connected. I just ran into a guy who did that, and by the way, that guy has a master's degree, and he electrocuted himself. So he found out the reason why some people go to electrical school to learn how to be an electrician, and therefore you don't electrocute yourself. So threat management, human threat management, is that. It's how to do what it is you want to do. You want to not have an employee come back and force you to kill that employee as a disgruntled employee, or you don't want to get killed by that employee. You want to have a family member disarmed, but you don't want to kill your family member just because he's drunk or unhappy or mad about something and making a bad decision today. You have a colleague at work that's mad about something, and now the discourse is going to make him to an active shooter. We can stop these situations without killing, and now it's not speculation or theory. We actually do this in Detroit. I teach others. I've had thousands of people come to my program. None of us are dead. None of us have gone to jail or had to go to court to explain our actions. And none of us have shot, injured, or killed unarmed people. And this is the first year where we don't use any fatal force devices. Now, I'm a firearms instructor. I love guns. I have lots of them. They're not used for the field. I have non-lethal weapons. A taser is not one of them. As you know, tasers kill people. We have lots of other devices that could be used if necessary. And I promise you, we're at 99.99% unnecessary to use any kind of equipment or weapon to manage human threat. And let's be clear, human threat is a much higher threat than any other threat on this earth. We are the apex predators. So we need to be respectful of our ability to create great harm, and also our ability to be psychologically susceptible to suggestion, positive and negative. What we do, instead of using intimidation, we use inspiration to change human behavior. So a lot of psychology is taught now, where I used to just teach better methods of using a pistol, a knife, a shotgun, a rifle, a baton, fighting on the ground, fighting standing up, and understanding the laws, which is what changed my school from any other. I thought if you just knew law while learning martial arts that actually worked and were battle proven, which I've done here in Detroit and my staff has done, I thought that would be critically important if you knew the law. What I didn't know is what's most important is if you knew how to deal with people and create a nonviolent outcome.
Yeah, very interesting. I think I looked into what you were doing a while ago, and it sounded like you're doing well. Like you have a number of corporate clients. I believe you also have, maybe you can tell me, some private clients. And then I even heard something which sounded almost crazy to a lot of people, that you even offer your services for free to people who can't afford it. Is any or all of that true?
Excellent. I'm so glad you brought that up. We're extremely financially successful, and let's be clear about that. But let's also be clear how it happened. What I did was I made sure that I put the quality of life of people first, profit second. I never focused on money. What I focused on was producing the environment for people to have a good quality of life. The byproduct of that is naturally going to be prosperity. Now, my intelligence had to convert it. In other words, you will volunteer yourself to death if you don't know how to make rich people pay you for how your volunteerism actions will result in their profitability. When they can understand that and see there's a direct correlation between your ideas of helping people and creating wealth for them, because they really don't care about the helping people part in general. That's nice. They think it's nice, you like helping people, but they're not really directly financially interested in that.
Right.
Until you can create the bridge. And that's what I do. I make wealthy people see that their wealth is about to increase exponentially when they don't have rape, robbery, and killing in their communities where they own property. If you are delivering cigarettes, they're going to be in movies because the mafia had been stealing cigarettes and hijacking trucks in Detroit and all major cities since the beginning of time. In Detroit, it was in a movie called Beverly Hills Cop. The first Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy shows Eddie Murphy flying out of the back of a truck and there's cigarettes inside. And I remember thinking as a kid, this is stupid. Why would they have a cigarette truck? It's because that's a big problem. My company was hired in 1998 by a $250 million company that lost all insurance options because the state, federal, and local law enforcement agencies could not stop the hijackings. So these hijackings apparently have been going on since the 70s. We got involved, and what's interesting is a police officer actually told the owner of the $250 million company that delivers cigarettes throughout the region, told him not to hire my organization because he has off-duty police officers that would work as security for his trucks, and that my organization is known as barbarians, having barbarians and being barbaric, very, very violent people. And the client, who is a highly educated person from a major university, says the guy that just left here, meaning me, has an organization of violent barbarians. He goes, well, officer, you just got that guy the job. He said, I wasn't going to hire him because he talks like Brian Gumble. But since you just validated that he has barbarians, I think I will be hiring him.
What's his problem with Brian Gumble?
Yeah, exactly. It's like Brian Gumble can't fight.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Right. So he's like, Brian, well, I don't need a smart guy. I'm smart. I went to the university. I don't need that. I need someone who can fight. And so that was his thing. So in other words, in his mind, smart people can't fight. Ignorant people fight well. And so this is part of our problem in our society too, is that we're, classism and ignorant thought process. So the make a long story short, the officer got me the job. By saying that. And you know what the client said? The client said, listen, why would I hire an off-duty police company to do something they couldn't do when they were on duty? I'm losing $100,000 a month in product.
Wow.
$100,000 a month for 2-3 years personally, this one company. And he said, now I've lost all my insurance options. They won't insure me. I'm now self-insured. How is this going to help me trusting you? And since the day we started in 1998, the client has not been robbed one time. We have had no incidents of violence. We have had no court dates. We've had to hurt no one. And we're in inner city Detroit 7 days a week with millions of dollars in payload behind us.
Wow.
No problems.
And so how did you accomplish that? Well,
we use psychology and the way that we interact with people. The projection is strong. The interaction is very positive and polite. So the way I train my staff is to view all people as though they're family and to project to them with strength, but also with positivity, with humility. You don't disrespect people because you're protecting anything or anyone. You never treat someone differently than you want your own family treated. So as a result, we don't have interactive problems with people, and predators are not looking for a hard target. They're looking for a soft target. So we are a very hard target. We project strong. A lot of the training deals with subtle projections, psychological, subconscious projections, voice inflection, facial expression, body positions, how you look, how you walk, how you talk, not just how you're dressed, but also how you're dressed. When people see us, they see extreme paramilitary projection, and they see what they believe to be someone highly prepared for battle. Then when they look at the person looks at them and waves in a positive way, does not try to intimidate them with stares and glares, does not try to entice them into an aggressive interaction. Instead, greets them in a positive way. And when they ask a stupid question, a feeler question to decide if they're going to rob you or not, my staff is taught how to approach them positively, take the physical space, proxemics-wise, get next to them, which is called protective proxemics, get in a position to dominate them, to take their weapon or gun, but greet them with a handshake and very positive interaction. As a result, the predator simply picks someone else and goes somewhere else. And what I did was I realized I'm accountable for everything. So there's the one thing that changes that's different between me and any other organization is the accountability. So I'm directly accountable. If my staff goes out and disrespects someone, hurts someone, injures them, kills them, rape, robs, or pillages in my uniform, in my name, I am accountable. I must know each person. I must know them psychologically. I must test them. I must evaluate their condition today and not assume that they were the person they were yesterday. So I created an entire system around managing the bodyguard section that I created from my school. So imagine an educational system to get rid of fear, that gives you the actual core competence to base your confidence on, not your gun confidence. Actual professional confidence can only come from actual skill-based competence. So ultimately, threat management is really the bridge, the educational bridge. How do you do this? How do we verify someone in our community without violating their rights, without making people feel oppressed? Well, we go and greet them and talk to them just like we would anywhere else. I don't care that you're walking around 3 a.m. with a black hoodie on, African-American male, 20 years old, in Detroit, in the dark, drifting. Drifting is walking without a purpose, but there really is a purpose. He's a predator. When I drive up to him and I have my camera in my hands, we have hidden ones, we don't use those. We put it right up there, an iPhone, where you can clearly see it. And we talk to the young man. I say, how you doing, young man? He says, fine. He tries to, this is one of the examples of an exact situation. He's in all black, it's 3:30 in the morning. He's looking down and he says, why are you filming me? I said, young man, we have to film because we have to show that we're being respectful and polite to anyone that we interact with. It's how we show and prove that we are not disrespecting people. He goes, so it's not for like evidence against me or something? Oh, absolutely not. You're not doing anything wrong. So of course it wouldn't be for evidence. It's just for, professionalism. And he goes, oh, okay. So he still doesn't look at me. He's still looking down. I said, listen, you got to be careful. There could be criminals out here tonight. Have you seen any criminals while you've been out tonight? And he goes, no, I haven't. I said, okay, be careful. Okay, it's very dangerous out here in Detroit. There could be violent criminals out here with guns and they could rob you. But guess what? Anytime you're in our community, you get free bodyguard services. So we're gonna be right behind you to make sure that you're safe. He goes, well, I'm just jogging. I'm not doing anything wrong. I said, exactly. So we don't want you to get robbed. So we're going to be right behind you in case someone tries to rob you. We're going to come up and save you, okay? And he looks at me and goes, okay. I said, so, feel free to jog here at 3:30 in the morning, anytime you want. Just know you're going to be safe. And then I said, because we're civilians, and this is a civilian, and we're on public streets, not a private community, this particular community. I said, listen, because legally we cannot ask someone for identification. Can't say, give me your ID. More importantly, we don't want to. We don't want to ask them for ID. I don't care. If you asked Ted Bundy for his ID, how would that help you? You'd find out he was a college student. How would that help you? So it doesn't really matter. What does matter is psychology, right? Belief systems. So I say to the young man, I said, if you give me your ID, sir, if you want to, I can put you in the good person file. Now, if the police come up and they say, hey, did you see this guy? We think he did a crime. We can prove you didn't do the crime because we have you in the good person file. Would you like to be in the good person file? And he thinks about it for a minute and he goes, what would a good person do right now? And he goes, yes, here's my ID. So I click, take the picture. Okay, young man, you are now in the good person file. Have a good night and we're right behind you. Now, Now, that's how you get rid of criminals.
Yeah.
Now, the people have no stories of, the one lady says to me, she goes, you people don't do anything. I said, excuse me, ma'am. I was driving by, waving, like, just saying, hi, ma'am, how are you today? Right? Because we interact with people, so we know them while protecting their communities, right?
Yep.
And she's doing her gardening, and she looks at me and she goes, you people don't do nothing. I said, ma'am, excuse me? And I pulled over and I said, what do you mean, ma'am? In that tone, not like, what are you saying, woman? Right? I'm like, ma'am, what can you please tell me what you mean by we don't do nothing? She said, I've been here, living here 20 years, 30 years, whatever. She goes, I never heard of you all doing nothing. You're not arresting nobody. I said, ma'am, you haven't heard of us arresting anyone? I said, have you heard of any of your neighbors being raped, robbed, or killed? And she thought about it for a minute, and she said, wow, no, I haven't. I said, we've been here for 4 years. You have not one rape, robbery, or killing story. You're in Detroit, in the inner city, the place that people use as a picture for the definition of dystopia in Wikipedia. So you're telling me you have not one story? No one would even believe you. That you have not one story of your neighbor being raped, robbed, or killed.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much you've thought about this sort of side of things. You think about more of the actual on-the-ground sort of real stuff. But the entire system is the problem. It's set up, if you think about the system, right, how are these cops paid? Well, they're paid from extorted funds, from taxes, right? From people who are told they have to give the money to these guys. They don't want to necessarily, they'd rather deal voluntarily with someone like you, right? But they don't, so the extorted funds, give it to these guys. It's essentially like a communist system. It's centrally planned, and they have no profit motive, not straight up anyway. They end up doing it through other means. But because of that, they don't know if they're even providing a good service, because a regular business, you know if you're not providing a good service, you go broke, right? If you're making money, you're providing good service, right? They don't even know that.
Essentially, people are saying several things as it relates to our success. One, they believe that there's a direct correlation between police failure and our success. And what I have to explain to people is that there's two separate subjects here. This is not law enforcement. We are not private police. We do not think or act or create conditions for policing. So the difference is that this is public threat management. So it's how to create safety in your community by managing threats, which has nothing to do with the enforcement of laws. I don't enforce any laws. I don't even use the laws in any way. I have to respect them and understand them so they're not used against me, but I do not use the laws to change human behavior in any way. I can use law enforcement or the idea of them as a psychological maneuver to motivate people, but it is not an actual thing. And so they're not related. When we go to a situation, we always call 911 first before we respond to any situation. And we arrive at the situation before law enforcement 9 times out of 10. And we're able to solve issues and create conditions for nonviolent outcomes in those situations. And that's because of the methodology that we use. Our objective is to never create a conflict situation. And, we have some latitude there because, as I explained to owners of businesses and homes, we're not in the kill and capture business. If you have us there and we end up killing and capturing people or capturing and killing people, you're in a lot of financial duress. And you don't realize that. And that's when you start blaming your private entity for the conditions. But the reality is your TV was never worth the amount it's going to cost you. The tools, the car, whatever it was that people died for, got injured over, that was never a financially intelligent move. So once I explain to people and I dollarize their understanding of force and violence as a civilian, it's a whole different thing. And then they can understand why we're so interested in peace for them as well. It's not just theory, it's actually financially appropriate to not have violence. You'd rather give a criminal $100 to leave your house than kill them. Killing them sounds so sexy until you find out what comes next. Not only do you have to take a ride downtown normally, which you don't want to do with your handcuffs sitting in the backseat of that car, winning this gunfight, but you have to clean up the brains in your house. You have to deal with the family coming after you at your house and your children. And you have to deal with the fact that Your family's traumatized by killing people in your house. And you have to deal with the fact that they still sue you for the death of their family members, which is still going to cost you money just to defend against these lawsuits for the injuries and deaths sustained on your property. So if there is a nonviolent solution that is in your best interest, psychologically, financially, physically, the best answer.
But it's funny, isn't it? Because a lot of people think that the police are supposed to be there to, that's why we need the government police, is to protect us. Right. But you just pointed out they rarely ever do. And in fact, with what's going on in the US today, many times they will come and shoot your dog or shoot you if you're trying to kill yourself. You just see this all the time. And again, this goes back to the systemic problem with the way the whole thing's set up. And you said something earlier that I think I disagree with, and I think I'm right on it. And I want to kind of convince you, because if I can convince you, I think your company will grow to be like a multi-billion-dollar company when you understand what I'm saying. I think what you said was that all security, you said all law enforcement should not be privatized. And I agree with you. There should not be law done by the government. There's really only one law, right? Don't hurt or kill anybody, right? That's it. Mm-hmm. Or steal. Hurt is like stealing, right? That's hurting someone. It's stealing from them, right? Mm-hmm. So all these other laws, the don't have plants in your house called marijuana. This whole system actually creates all the problems that you're seeing in places like Detroit. It all goes, for example, with these communities that you're in. You know better than me, but I can see from the outside looking at them. The cops come around. They'll find a kid. He'll have a plant in his pocket. He'll end up going to jail. Then he gets out. He can't get a job. Now he has to go and try to find a way to get some stuff that he wants. He goes and steals something. Now it all propagates upon itself. So if the entire system was private, and it would be organizations like yours. Now, of course, there would be some bad ones, but you would actually be up against those bad ones too, right? So you'd have clients calling you saying, hey, this private company's bad.
No, actually, it's not that at all. There's a company here right now, and they're doing very well financially, and they're not doing anything. But because they have mostly white employees and are owned by a white suburban ex-police officer, and her cousin works for the city here, they are able to maintain contracts and receive government money to do nothing. And they're what you consider our competition, which is they're not competing with us. But they're making money, they're surviving, they have, they're functioning with zero success. And the people keep paying them because it is believed that if they're white, that they're a good company. And so one of the things that it's hard for a lot of people to understand is that racism permeates our entire societal structure. And so since we view people like ourselves, I grew up in the suburbs around all white people, so I don't see color. So I don't remember, I got to remember that when people see me talking, they're, it throws them off my speech pattern. Or diction, and then they also are thrown off by my lack of humility as it relates to communicating. And it doesn't occur to me you're supposed to not speak to people in a very assertive, professional way when you're African American, because it can be considered disrespectful or uppity, as we call it in America. And so the reality is my success is due to my multicultural staff. When I had, it took me 15 years to make $250,000 a year, and I went over $1.5 million because I had a white guy that stood up in front of the company with that looked like an old FBI agent and spoke very well. And they just hired me. They hired my company like crazy. White guy. They just went crazy, hired us. We couldn't stop getting business. The industry of public safety is the hardest thing you could ever do. It's harder than brain surgery. It's harder than all other kinds of tasks. Remember, you're going to be going around trying to figure out which humans are actual aggressors versus non-aggressors, and that means who's going to kill you and who might you have to kill. That's your job. You're walking around deciding who to kill and not kill, and who you think is going to kill you and who's not going to kill you as you go to people's problems, as they call you to their problems. Think about how hard that is. That's not a shift. I mean, that's not something you do, like, just going to go over here and decide to kill this person or not. I mean, think about how hard that is, how smart you have to be to do that, right? So the reality is we have a really inappropriate way of thinking of public safety, and that's our first issue. You need your best and brightest people out there deciding what's right and what's wrong in a situation, and how to create nonviolence is a whole other thing. In other words, when someone's standing there and they have the ability, not just ability theoretically, the intentions and actions are showing you they want to kill you. How will you create a nonviolent outcome? Intentions and actions are apparent right there. They're saying, I'm going to kill you. They have a knife. Well, what we do is take them down without killing them. What we do is psychologically talk to them if there's space and gap, and get them to understand a better way of thinking and get out of here and put the knife down or get away and not have an issue. Put the gun back in your holster and go home, because it's best, right? Not kill them if I can help it, and not create an interaction that's violent. And that only can happen if you're truly confident, which can only happen if you don't have fear of consequences. And so my point is that education is your key critical element. Without the education, you will be doing immoral and illegal things by accident, especially in public safety. And my staff is no different. It just takes a lot of training and a lot of terminations. I spend $250,000 a year.
Well, that's the thing, right?
People.
Like, I want to kind of, I want to sort of talk about why this is so much better than government police, right? Because cops never get fired. That's why it's always better in the private sector. You said you need the best and the brightest doing this stuff, and I generally agree with you. Security is pretty much, if you don't have security, you don't have much. So you should want that. But who do the police hire always, right? They hire people with low IQs and all that kind of stuff, because they want them to go out and enforce all these stupid laws, these arbitrary laws,
Yes.
and not actually protect people, as you pointed
sector.
out. So what I want to get to, but sorry to cut you off, but I want to get to, are you expanding, and do you plan to have any sort of affiliates, sort of like expand it to different cities and things like that? Because I want to see threat management and companies like it, even competing with you, all over the place. That's what I'd like to see.
Yes. What you want, well, yes, we're definitely expanding, but we're going to be using people like libertarians, voluntarists, and the people that are really into positive freedom for people. That's who we're going to be using. We have activists that are training with us right now. We call them actionists. The difference between an activist and an actionist is the actionists take the ideas that they're active about and then puts them to work. So they go out there, put themselves at risk. They put skin in the game. And the actionists are who we're looking for across the globe. Let's be clear. The purpose of threat management centers as an organization is to go around the world, not to be limited to America.
Good.
And
Good.
yes, and it's
You
not.
could really use it down here in Mexico
Definitely.
as well, by the way. They actually do have some private security firms. They're pretty good, but they have nowhere near like this ideology that you have that I think would
Right.
be so much better.
Right, and that's a prime example. All third world countries have private security that's very overt, and all they are is a watered down version of the public sector. They're just in America, private sector police. The people that are attracted to that, the whole concept of that, those people are police that were fired, people that couldn't be cops, that wanted to be cops, primarily. And so they're like the worst applicants that have now become this. What started me, and this is very important, you gotta know the origin of what someone's doing, why they're doing it. I wanted to teach people. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, self-taught teacher. I did not go to college. I come from a family of all doctors. And so I'm the only one that, my little sister's a doctor, my mother, my grandfather, my great-grandparents, all doctors, all physicians. And my family owned the first African-American privately owned hospital here in Detroit. This concept that we have a lower class of humans is not true. The poor people do not like the rich people because the rich people have what they do not have. So if we are thinking in society, there'll be a protective class of poor people that will honor those that are not poor. And I say this to people because I do these conversations with wealthy people that are completely disconnected from reality of human beings. They say, we're having problems with shrink. We're having a problem with violence. We're having a problem with, what are you paying your security? What are you paying security? These are grown adult men and women with children who are grown adults. What are you paying them? Oh, I don't know, something low. Okay, so you expect a person who does not have the ability to afford their own valuables to watch your valuables. Is that your plan? I mean, that's very, very not nice. To say the least, it's very stupid. You're better off with no security.
It's stupid. It doesn't matter if it's nice or not. It's just stupid,
Yes,
right?
and
Like
this
you have to
concept-
make good decisions.
The concept of theft being associated with employment is stupid. Bernie Madoff had plenty of employment and education, and he stole more than all the thieves in prison right now combined. Okay? Enron was filled with highly educated people from the best colleges. They were stealing from the working class people, stealing. Okay, they weren't not stealing, they were stealing.
The Federal Reserve's full of people stealing from everybody.
Yes.
The government's full of people
Yes,
stealing.
so stop acting like poor people are stealing. They're not. Listen, I've met a bunch of poor people. They wouldn't take $1 if you offered it to them that they didn't earn. And I know a bunch of rich people that will have you sign a contract to take all of your money.
Absolutely. I want to get back again because I want to really see this all over the place. So are you expanding right now? Are you just in Detroit? Do you have plans to expand other places? Have you thought about this?
Yes, definitely. This has been the expansion plan has been in a planning stage for about the past 10 years. Replicating, creating a replicatable system, and now we have people that are interested in creating franchises for the training centers. So essentially, we have several different components. One, we have a training institution that's just the educational foundation for everything. So the schools, the primary schools. From there, we have training centers, much like a martial arts school, but you wear your regular clothes. You just come in there, learn tactics like gun disarms, knife disarms. You learn about psychology, how to manage human threats, how to identify body language, how to project body language to create nonviolent interactions. And we really center on real life application and how to create nonviolent outcomes, right? So that's your training centers. Those are franchisable facilities. And so we have people right now that are looking at opening facilities in a couple here in the Michigan area, in the suburbs, over the next year here. And then we have Vegas, and we're looking into LA in 3 years, but next year we're looking at Atlanta. So we got.
And so you're not thinking about expanding into actual protection services as
yes,
well?
Yes, the protection services have two different vehicles. One is actual training of entities in different cities and having them threat management trained and certified. So these agencies will understand that's called the DECA program. We partner with them, form partnerships, and we're going to try to see if we can do it that way. It's just very difficult because remember, if one of those guys that's from these private entities goes in your house and does something to your family, it's going to ruin the whole situation. So we got to be very careful. We can't have any of those kinds of deviations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to do these sort of things, but it can be done. You just got to be very careful.
Extremely.
And so the reason I'm sort of bringing it up is because we've got a large audience around the world of people who all want to see threat management everywhere. And many of them are very, very smart, very good people at doing things. So they might want to contact you and look into getting the center set up for education and things like that, and expanding into the security services under your umbrella, or maybe they might just want to do it on their own. But I think it always makes sense if someone's built a good model that really works and already has a good brand, it makes sense to just work within that for a lot of people. So I hope a lot of people do that. I'd like to see this in every city in the world is what I'd like to see.
Yes, well, that's our objective. Let's be clear. I've made it so that there's multiple ways we can get it out there, because remember, it's education, right? So it works in all languages, it works under all conditions, and since it centers on peace, it's actually good for all communities, all corporations. Corporations will prosper, communities will have a good quality of life for their citizens, no matter where they are in the world, because we show you how to manage these issues of fear and violence related to threat. And so it doesn't matter if you're in a church, it doesn't matter if you're in the street, it's the same principles that apply behind creating conditions where violence does not occur. And that is our goal. And so that's why I'm glad you have me on the show, so we can, let people know there is something real out there. We're in Detroit. We have stats from the people, from the police department. The police administrators support us very well because what we create is positive statistical information for their police department as a byproduct. They don't pay us. We're not connected to them in any way, yet they benefit because our citizens are benefiting. And if the people are benefiting, the government's benefiting, everyone's benefiting, it's positive for everyone. And that's the point and that's where it becomes the bridge. And yes, absolutely, we do not need, and let me be clear about this. There are 2,000 law enforcement officers here in Detroit. At one time, there was, I guess, about 7,000, okay? Now, what I tell people is this, they go, well, we need more cops. This is very disrespectful to me, by the way. So the reason why threat management in Detroit is succeeding is because police are failing. Really? That's ridiculous. So what you're saying is Detroit had a really good reputation when they had 7,000 officers, right? When was that? Tell me when you thought, I should go vacation in Detroit, it's so great. I should invest in my money in beautiful property there. When was that? When they had 7,000 officers? No, it's no difference. There's zero difference between your quality of life with 7,000 officers and 2,000 officers, because that's not what it's related to. Your quality of life is not related to people getting arrested. In fact, if the police were 100% successful at arresting and stopping every single crime, we would all be poverty stricken, because nobody can afford to have 50 billion people, 50 million people in prison. Okay, we're trying, but it's not going to work. No matter how many people you arrest, I promise you, crime will not go down. And so, make a long story short, I got people from the neighborhoods, just regular people from Detroit, and said, listen, I'll give you a uniform that says U.S. Patrol, which stands for Urban Survival Patrol. I think people thought it might have stood for United States. It said U.S. Patrol on the chest. And so I didn't have any money, so I only had 10 shirts. And volunteers have to change shirts. They just see different people's faces, and they thought I had millions of people in the organization. And then I had people that that would get, the real truth is people were so scared they wouldn't come back. So they would just see, the citizens would just see a whole bunch of different faces all the time. And they're like, man, it's a big organization. So that's
what you got to do when you're small. Just hustle and get it working.
Yes, there's a lot of psychology, man. I told I trained the people. I said, listen, I'll get you a free apartment. You can live there, and I will give you tactics for free. I'll train you to protect your building, and you pay your rent by just simply protecting your building. And so next thing you know, I got another client that paid for the Nextels so we can communicate walkie-talkies. And next thing you know, you press a button, you got 10 people showing up to help. And with training, so nobody's doing something to get themselves locked up. Very important. And that's how it started. And it became, for the first time in 20 years, the building owners went into the black. They started making money, because when there's no rape, robbery, and killing, it turns out people don't move. They pay their rent, and more people move in. More and more and more people keep moving in. Yes, and then I find out what happens when you have 100 people to manage per day. And that's why I can tell you, you do not want to have private sector involved in your communities without a great deal of governance and fear of prosecution. And you have to be motivated by altruism, not by money. You have to find people that love people. The key to protecting humanity is the love of humanity. So you cannot protect what you do not love. You will not protect what you do not love. And so finding people that are good people towards other people is the key to having successful management of threat in any community or corporation. So the best people I'm looking for the organizations are activists, because they empathize, they feel that things should change, and they feel that that things could be better. So they have that in them. The actionists that we're looking for are people that are willing to come out and train with us, learn the methodologies. We'll train you right here in Detroit to go back to your communities, to go as an individual, as a group, or to become an actual threat management component of VIPER's team. VIPER stands for Volunteer Investigators, Protectors, Educators, Rescuers, and Searchers. And Violence Intervention Protective Emergency Response System is the actual training system for the people that physically respond to people's concerns and situations. What makes it a payable situation is when you combine forces with a security entity, which is what we do here in Detroit. And that's called CSDP Security. And these people are basically, we're the division of that company that goes out into the communities. And that's how we are able to create nonviolence in a palatable public sector payable program. But it can be done through volunteerism. It can be done through paid networking through companies, or it can be done as a separate training entity with volunteers from within your training school being a profitable entity based on education. Then people volunteer to protect people in the communities. And that's really a lot of it, because really what you do that's good is prevent people from being preyed upon. So the key is not finding out who did crimes to people. The key is not looking for situations where we can go find justice for rape and robbery and killing victims, but in creating conditions where those things don't happen. And there's lots of people that need to be prevented from being harmed. Stalking victims, domestic violence victims. There are people in every community, no matter where you live, that are in danger and need someone who's going to help them without killing people to help them. So that's one of the issues is you want help, but you don't want people getting killed to help you if you can help it. And that's where the system comes in.
Yeah. The only thing I disagree with you, and we're not going to talk too much more about it, is that I think everything can be privatized. There's no need for government whatsoever. But that's a whole other long story. And if you come to Acapulco, which I heard you might be coming to speak next year, maybe we can talk to you more about that so you can understand why that would work better than what we have today. But I do have one last question for you. I was wondering if you've heard of the app on your cell phone called Cell 411.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Have you looked into it at all?
A little bit. I'm actually getting ready to look into them more because we're wanting to develop an app or coordinate with someone who already has an app.
That's what you got to do that. So my next guest after you on Anarchast is Virgil Viduva. He created the app. It's going viral around the world now. It's a way for people to have their own communities protect themselves. So if you have a problem, you can have like all your friends and family know exactly where you are and they can come there. Now you pointed out that's not always perfect either because a lot of them are.
That is not always good. That's terrible. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Because this is what I do for a living. It's terrible. It is terrible. So when you call people to a situation, right, your brain is already got an idea, right? So when I get there and I think all white people are racist, right, and there's a white guy and one of my black neighbors has a problem with him, I'm automatically going to be on the black guy's side when my black neighbor is the one harassing the white guy. Now the white guy is mad when I get there and he goes to draw his gun, I blow his brains out. He's protecting his family. And the reverse, of course, is more common. And so the Trayvon Martin situation. So these are common. It's not uncommon. Then there's the nefarious people. And that's this. The guy breaks up with a girl and then creates the conditions to come over and attack her new boyfriend. And so the good people come to respond thinking that you're good like me. You look good. You sound good. You're like me. And then they follow that false information. Or you bring them over. You say, you know what? There's someone bothering me here in Acapulco at my home. The people show up and they shoot the wrong person or beat the wrong person. And you can't stop them. And that's the other thing is once these things get out of hand, it's really bad. So a lot of the problems you see with law enforcement, quite honestly, a lot of it looks very nefarious. And I promise you, some of it very much is, but a lot of it is just accidents, biomechanical accidents. That's where your ideas and your actions, you can't stop them before you can stop yourself. And next thing you know, people are injured or killed. And that's when the reports start looking funny. But the reality is you're trying to do the right thing. And so when you call me to a scene, I'm coming there with the idea I'm here to help, but without a lot of training, I won't know who needs the help. I won't know who the right person is to help and the correct person. And things get out of hand in what's called road rage very easily. So you can imagine how it is when you're actually responding on foot to what could be danger. It's
yeah, well, there definitely can be some good and bads to this, but I think there is definitely some good. And and what they're looking for, I think, at the moment, I'm going to be interviewing him next, is to work with security firms like yourself. So as people could sign up for your service, for example, you could maybe just charge $10 a month or something. People could have this on their phone because you said you're looking for an app, right? Yes. So I'm just trying to figure out how we could put this all together to create an amazing system.
Absolutely. And the key is the training. So this app is a great thing because it gives us that connectivity, but then we have to have the training. So just to keep it clear, so imagine you're having a heart problem, we press a button and all your neighbors come running. Well, that sounds good, right? In theory, until one of them decides you're having a seizure, not a heart attack, and starts to put a spoon in your mouth. And then another one says you're having another problem, you need to be stood up. And then another problem says you're having heat exhaustion, wants to take your clothes off you. And, so what you need are people with some training to show up. Because if they don't have training, you'd be better off sitting on the ground, waiting for a government ambulance, it's going to take too long, than to have really nice neighbors come kill you by accident. And then how does your family respond? Like when the government kills you by accident, you're kind of like, that's bad government. When it's your neighbor, it's a lot different. Remember,
yeah, just so you know, the app isn't just for security; it's also for fire and all kinds of issues, right? So it's a really great app that essentially gets rid of the need for a government 911 number for a lot of things. And you're pointing out some of the potential problems, so that's why I think you guys should work together.
Let me give you an example. Every day I get a call last week because one of the residents says, "You people, meaning us, aren't doing your job." Every day I see these damn thugs come by here at 9 a.m. Then I see them again at 3 p.m. and you people are nowhere. Your security are nowhere. I said, sir, those are black kids going to school. You do know they have to take the bus sometimes. And they're rich kids, by the way. And it never occurred to him he had black neighbors, nor did it occur to him that black kids take buses. So the reality is we need to understand human behavior in order to create the positive outcomes we're looking for. And that app you're talking about is a great tool with the education to support it so people know how not to create a condition that ruins their family while they're trying to help someone else's family.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I want to connect you guys. So
Please.
Watch when I put out the next one, and then I'll try to connect you guys somehow because I think you guys should definitely talk. And I'm trying to get him to Acapulco next year as well. So maybe we can all talk then as well. And like I said, I'd like to see this sort of thing just growing. If there was threat management in every city in the world, we'd have a much better world,
Yes.
obviously.
That's our goal. That's our goal.
Yep. Great. Awesome stuff. Well, we've talked a lot. You're quite a talker. So I was warned, though. I was warned. Nathan said you might want to set a few hours aside. But great stuff, though. The only thing I disagree with you on is on the complete privatization.
Yes.
But that's not a big deal.
Yes,
we can
you and I are going to agree to disagree.
Discuss that in the future.
And then we can battle on the actual empirical results of those people down in Texas. We're the opposite of them. And I believe we're going to start hearing some bad stories from private sector organizations. And it's not really I will say it's not they're not nefarious. It's just the reality of the environment combined with money. And that my theory is, based on my experiences, that it'll be worse than local law enforcement ever was. And I hope I'm wrong.
I don't know how that's possible, really. It's sort of funny, though, because you're kind of arguing against your own experiences and what you've done. You've started a company that has an excellent track record and is helping the community, but you're saying if other people did it, they'd probably do it wrong.
Listen, I'm telling you two parts. Number one, from experience, I can tell you it's wrong. From experience, I fired thousands of people, sir. Think for a second. Listen, I am. I had to fire 20 people in one night because they do a special handshake. Yeah. So understand that you have to be proactively seeking. The internal controls we have are 10 times more strenuous than the external issues. So in other words, our emphasis on how I manage the internal mechanism of humans is way more intense and let's say challenging than the actual managing of threats here in Detroit. Your internal threats in your human group are much more pervasive and problematic than your external threats. And we got shot at a lot. So I'm still telling you my internal threats were worse than my external threats. Okay? So Serpico was an officer amongst many thousands who decided he would do the right thing. Then bad things happened to him. Okay, so it's nothing unique. It's just what happens when human beings with integrity are mixed in with money. Money, humans, integrity.
No, absolutely. Money corrupts most people. Absolutely. The only sort of point I have is that the private sector always takes better care of it than the public sector, and you've proven that point. So it's kind of funny you're arguing against your own point. But let's call this.
I'm the altruistic sector. So remember this: many of my decisions, including my community protection, I had to lose money to do it. Okay. Now what I did was I created conditions for later to possibly be prosperous, but I never focused on that. I focused on creating good things for the people that were there. Like I don't drink or smoke, but I guarantee you, if you like cigarettes, you like the fact that I got the cigarettes to where they got to go without people being hijacked and people being abducted. I stopped those hijackings and abductions, not for the cigarettes, but for the people. Right? The byproduct is the rich man got richer and paid me more money. So I didn't want people getting home invaded in their homes. They were kicking in their doors every day. There was someone would get killed in this one square. We're talking about 1 square block in Detroit, by the way, 1 square block. Every day. Wow. So I stopped the home invasions. I stopped the monthly murders, and I did it without murdering and without getting murdered. And that was hard to do. But just so we're clear, if I would have thought about money, none of this would be possible because there was no money at every single level. What I had to do was take a loss in order to prove it valuable, and then I had to recalibrate the understanding that once they understood and I got them to understand that the quality of the product, they could then feel that the need to invest, or I would be, and that's why I like your concepts of volunteerism and mutual agreement, is that the other people would steal me away. And so once they knew that there is no one else trying to do what we're doing, and so before we get to the part of how we do it, there's no one that wants to do this. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can call us for any situation, for anything. Loud music, pit bulls won't let you out of your house, men outside, men trying to get in your house, a man is inside your house. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we respond right now. This concept that poor people, people are stealing because they don't have money. Well, the police have a job, and the FBI arrests police officers every day for stealing. The people at factories.
Well, the police in the U.S. now steal more than through their asset forfeiture than all private criminals combined. So that's the private sector works better than the public sector.
America steals more than all them combined.
Yeah, but they're mostly enabled by the laws and the monopolies through the government. It's a whole long story.
They're all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. Everything's connected, of course. But we don't need to get into all those details. Anyway, I'm super glad you're doing what you're doing. Hope it expands. If you'd like to let people know where they can get more information on what you're doing, or if they can get involved somehow and maybe help you expand, let them know.
Please do. We're looking for people everywhere, anywhere that want to help their communities, help corporations, help communities in other places, not just be limited to your own, to train them in our facility here, Detroit Threat Management Center. Threatmanagementcenter.com is our website. We train police officers for free on Mondays. We train citizens every Friday for free, called Free Family Friday. We have paid courses throughout the week. And what we teach is how to use psychology, law, and skill to create a nonviolent outcome by creating the conditions for violence not to occur. So again, it's threatmanagementcenter.com. That's THREAT, management spelled out, center.com. And you can also look us up on YouTube and Google us. You'll see lots of international, we've been featured in Holland and Russian TV and lots of different places helping people. And what you'll see is a lot of it's altruistic, it's free. But that's because very wealthy people are made very wealthy by our strategies, and we are able to financially expand. But even if we weren't getting paid, let's be clear, I would still be teaching people in parks for free, and I would still be training people to protect themselves and others, and I would still protect people for free because money is not related to the mission. The money is the byproduct, and there's lots of money, and we're making lots of money. Things are very positive, and very prosperous. We're buying boats. We're buying all kinds of equipment. Our objective is to have the best equipment in the world, and as well as armored vehicles to go out and make families safe. Corporations will succeed because the families in communities are not raped, robbed, and killed. And this has nothing to do with drugs. This has everything to do with just predation, stopping human predation. And again, this actually helps law enforcement as well because they have less crimes to deal with, less issues, and we coordinate with them as much as we can to, as much as they are willing to help them, help us create safety for the families. So our whole focus is how do we create a violence-free environment, violence without using violence. Very important. Threatmanagementcenter.com.
Absolutely. Great. It ties in completely with our philosophy here of not aggressing against others, and also anarcho-capitalism, which making money while you do it. And even though Dale pointed out, he'd do it even if he wasn't making any money, and that's great. It shows the passion he has, and I'm sure there's other people who'd like to do that as well. But if you can also make money while you're doing it, it's doubly great, and there's nothing wrong with making a profit.
That's right.
You're providing a great service that makes other people money. That's all you want. It's great. You're providing value to other people. So totally ties in with us. So really excited to have you on, Dale, and then we're going to have on Virgil. I'm going to bring up some of the issues you brought up about some of the potential risk with the app, but I think it's definitely a net positive to have apps like that.
Definitely.
So we just have to work through it.
I look forward to coordinating with them. And, our kids program, which you'll see on our website as well. You'll see police officer testimonials, victory testimonials. Please look at our website, threatmanagementcenter.com. And we really look forward to, sharing with people the actual empirical results of ideas put into action. So this is not a new organization. We started it again in 1994. We're successful because we create the outcomes that justify our existence. So it is the greatest example of capitalism, of communism, socialism, and everything else combined, anarchism, voluntarism. It's just not a good example of the use of force and violence to affect change. That it is not. It is a way of saying, look, we can take care of each other. We don't need government money. I do not have, nor have I ever received, $1 from the government for anything. So let's be clear. And I had a guy actually check on that. We are a boots on the ground, a sweat equity organization. Everything came from creating positive outcomes for people that can afford services. And for those that can't, again, that's the point of it, was to protect people in need. So it doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, we have to protect everyone, because it turns out if the rich people live around very bad violence, it's not good for them either. So if everybody's being smart about this, creating conditions that don't have rape and beatings and violence and killings, what it does is it raises your property value. It makes rich people richer again. So their quality of life improves, and they have a way of making it sustainable. And that's the point of this, that, you don't have to think that safety is a negative detractor, that it's costly. It is expensive, but it's way more prosperous than failure to prevent violence.
Yeah, it's expensive but profitable.
Very profitable.
So you spend money, but you make more money because of it. And that's one of the big questions that a lot of people always bring up is, well, without government police, how would sure, some people could afford services like Dale, but what about the poor people? Well, Dale just pointed out that they make money from some people, and it makes sense for everybody to be protected because it actually makes everyone else a lot more prosperous as well. So this all works, and Dale's out there proving it and showing it. And so that's why I want to see this expand. And so glad to have you on, Dale.
Thank you very much. Me. It's been great.
All right. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share. Let's change the world, make it much more peaceful and prosperous, and a lot less problems, and also make money while doing it sometimes. It's great. It's beautiful. The world could be beautiful if we just have the right mindset of non-aggression and non-violence. Absolutely. And we can do this. We have to show people how to do it, and Dale's one of the guys who's doing it. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
It's interesting in your introduction in the show, you said it's the world's largest anarcho-capitalist gathering, and I certainly don't dispute that, but wouldn't it be a great world if people did dispute that, and people were arguing about different anarcho-capitalist conferences? Are you aware of many different anarcho-capitalist conferences around the world?
Because these bastards have no power but that which we give them. We've given them that power, and we've allowed them to run roughshod over the world. We've allowed millions of people's lives to be destroyed, and I don't give a shit what anybody wants to say. I have no interest in political correctness. We are directly responsible for that bullshit, and this is why we must stop it. No one else is coming in to save us. There is no fucking savior. We have to change this circumstance. So I say it because I don't believe we have any chance of handing over this world to our children and future generations in a better state unless we take responsibility.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.